Welcome back, everyone, for another episode of the unofficial WCC Hoops podcast. We're only 8 Mondays away from the start of the college basketball season, so we're able to start ticking off the days as we get closer, and we're starting to see more of the schedules start to roll out. We're starting to see more college basketball news start to make appearances, and more related to the season than some of the off-season realignment, whatever else that's happening. And we do have a special guest today, Portland head coach Shantay Legans. Recorded an interview with him a few days ago, so that will be part of this episode. So really hope you're looking forward to that, and we'll also dive into Portland a little bit more as I get into that. Both St. Mary's and USF released their schedules over the last few days, so we'll dive into that as well. But I want to start this episode talking about a report Seth Davis put out on Monday that highlighted Fox Sports reaching out to a number of the power conferences in the hope of developing a postseason tournament for college basketball tournament that largely is like it's going to supplant the NIT. So again, only major conferences involved. They reached out to the Big East, the Big 10, the Big 12. It's 16-team tournament that would take place in Las Vegas for teams who did not make the NCAA tournament. They would try to somehow house this in between the Elite Eight and the Final Four. It would require them to reject an NIT invite as well. And this is, I think, one of the items that has had a lot of college basketball fans concerned, including myself. That all the realignment, all the movement, and chasing the big TV deal gave so much power to the networks to dictate who they wanted to see on their networks. And competition be damned on that front. It's about the name brand on these schools, and this is a prime example of that. Again, they reached out to a few of the power conferences in college basketball, the Big East, Big 10, Big 12, and this is a warning sign, I think, for the rest of college basketball, especially anyone who's in a mid or low major conference, that this has been the potential red flag all along with realignment. That could the day come when they somehow shove all the mid majors and low majors out of the picture altogether and just make a tournament of their own without any of the rest of the smaller schools, without eliminating Cinderella, eliminating what really made what makes college basketball great, what makes the NCAA tournament great. And there is a danger to this. And I actually was thinking about this tournament, and competitively, I think actually the NIT would be probably better without those mediocre power conference schools, because you're still going to have a lot of these not the auto bid, sorry, but the your regular season conference champions from these mid-major leagues that didn't get into the tournament. They're going to have a chance to really have their own. But to an extent of like, that's kind of what the idea of like the CBI was just a few years ago, or the CIT was just a few years ago before they went belly up. And this just feels gross. This feels just like an attack on the soul of sports in general. It's not even just college sports. Like this goes against competition. This goes against doing what is right for the sport. This is about dollars. This is about the TV revenue. This is, for nothing else, this is greed. And I get that that's where college sports has gotten to this point. I get that that's the capitalistic way that our society runs, and maybe this was an inevitability. Maybe that's what this was. But and And you can't look at this as small picture, oh, this only impacts the NIT. If it works and the enough eyeballs are on this lower tiered tournament, this is a blueprint to then use for the bigger conferences again to say, we don't need the NCAA, we will make our own tournament. Without the mid-majors, without the little schools. And even like as much as I say that, like, guess what? At the moment, that also includes Gonzaga because they are still part of the WCC. I mean, who knows? Maybe if like they all like all those power conference schools, they take Gonzaga with them because of the notoriety that they have at this point. But we haven't seen them outside of the Big East with what the Big East is doing. We haven't seen them really include any non-football school in this conversation, or like no non-football school has joined the Big 12. No non-football school has joined the ACC. There's a danger here, and you cannot overlook what this potentially could be. Now the reports say like, oh, this is still a ways out. This is not something that would happen immediately, or that they're even relatively close to what this might look like. But this is a giant red flag and should be for every college basketball fan. And of course, one of those things that has been talked about as well has been everything that's been happening with the Pac-12, because it's somewhat related to that, because obviously the Pac-12 is not included in this because there won't be a Pac-12 come next year, or there might be because of the way Oregon State and Washington State have been actually really fighting for their life, really. And I don't know if many of you saw the news last week that they had filed for a restraining order against the other schools because the other schools were looking to not only meet to potentially vote on some conference-related issues, which they shouldn't be able to do because they said that they were leaving. But as I saw, I think it was a Nicole Auerbach report that it was not only that they were going to meet about how to break up the remaining funds that the Pac-12 holds to cover their exit fees and cover their transitional costs. And the court did rule on Monday that yes, Washington State and Oregon State were going to get that restraining order held so that they cannot meet. The other 10 schools cannot meet, at least for the time being, while they try to figure this out. So I think that, I really hope this goes well for Washington State and Oregon State. I feel terrible the fact that they've kind of been left holding the bag of the Pac-12, and they're going to have to rebuild in some way, shape, or form. I don't know if they're going to be able to poach the Mountain West, which probably makes a lot of sense. I don't know if they try to poach some of the WCC. Who knows? There's a lot of moving pieces here. And I know this is Pac-12 news, and I typically only cover WCC or whatnot. But I felt like that was just interesting enough and connected to this whole Fox Sports tournament, which has a realignment-esque connection. So bringing back the Pac-12, because I'm dead set on backing Oregon State, Washington State on this one, because they've gotten the raw end of the deal, and I really do feel for their fans, their alums, who have been left out in the cold at this point. All right, so I'm going to start. We'll get back into WCC basketball, and so as I mentioned, I'm going to play the interview with Shantay Legans in a little bit, and Portland, I have been one of the people who has also kind of had Portland kind of like on my back burner. They're in that lower tier. There's Gonzaga, St. Mary's, there's USF, Santa Clara, LMU. I think there's Portland, and then there's Pepperdine, San Diego, and Pacific. So I do think that there's kind of like a little bit of a tier to Portland. And this is in this weird spot where I don't think that they're going to be as bad as those other three, but I don't know how close they are to the likes of LMU, USF, Santa Clara. because they too, like a lot of those other programs, had a lot of turnover this past off season. You lost Moses Wood, you lose Mike Meadows, you lose a number of guys off that roster, but it's not like nobody comes back off this team. Tyler Robertson is coming back, and he's going to be one of the best players in the league. We're going to talk a little bit. Juan Sebastian Gorcito, he returns, so like that's a sophomore who's going to, I think, going to still be a really good impact guy for that team. And the one I'm probably most excited to see is the return of Chris Austin. Missed all of last year. He got hurt right at the end of the season 2 years ago, and just took him out all of last year. And I think it's just going to be really exciting to kind of see what he can do. That was a 15, 16 point per game guy. And that's going to be a huge boost to this team, especially when, again, you lose Moses Wood. And that team last year just was snake bitten all year long. We saw what the potential could have been early on in the year. They had North Carolina on the ropes. They beat Villanova. And yes, those two programs weren't as good as we had seen them in years past, but that's still early on in the season when those teams still had higher expectations. That was a big deal. That was a really big deal for not only for Portland, but then also the WCC, because that really kind of showed that this program was moving in the right direction. But then injury after injury after injury, and they were never really whole at any point last year. So I think this Portland team is going to be fascinating to watch going into the year. I think this Portland team is, I don't know if it primed to make a jump, but everyone's kind of like forgotten about them a little bit, myself included. They might go under the radar like they did a couple years ago, and they might surprise some people. But we'll see how that all goes. So with that, let's get into it and talk with Portland head coach Shantay Legans. Coach Legans, how was your summer? What and how's the first few weeks of the school year been?
Summer's good. Summer was great. It was a summer where you do a lot of reflection after last season, and so we got to sit back and see some of the things and try to get better from what that season came. So we got to do that, and it was exciting because we got some guys in here with the shooting capabilities and different things that I like. So it was exciting hanging with the team and being with the team this summer. We had a lot of fun. I think we got better, and I'm looking forward to hanging out. And my family and I, we did a couple trips here and there, but they're all in on being part of this this journey with us. So I got my kids are always hanging out every day out here. So it was a good time. It was a good family environment this summer, and I really appreciate the summer from all the guys and the coaching staff.
Yeah, and there were a lot of changes over the summer, of course, because you had a lot of guys move on. You brought a lot of new guys in. I'm going to start with last year. Just you guys had faced so many challenges a year ago. Because it seemed like every time it turned around, another guy went down with an injury,
Yeah.
another key guy went down with an injury, and your rotation just kept having to change all year long. And early on, it was like there was so much excitement because you guys played so well in the PK tournament. You get that win against Villanova. You went toe to toe with UNC, and then it just seemed like what could go wrong did go wrong.
Yeah.
And just kind of talk about just what you learned from that season, and maybe for some of the guys who have come back, what's kind of like their mindset as they try to go into this coming season.
Well, it was a humbling season. That's what I said. We didn't as a team, as a staff, we didn't handle like the early success in the season with some big wins. We didn't handle the turnaround that we had the year before very well. And again, you compound it with injuries and different things like that. It really puts you in a tough spot. And we were in a tough spot. And I you know, I sat back with Tyler because he was with me at Eastern, and we did a lot. We've been together for a while, so we got to talk a lot on the season. And there was just some things. We had some slippage, and we had some things that, we haven't encountered before. We've encountered injuries, but not like we had last year. We had two guys that would play massive minutes, one sitting out, the other one had the red shirt. That was, unexpected. You had games without Tyler and Moses together. And
Yeah.
so, those aren't excuses though. And so what you do is you build a program and you have depth. We didn't have great depth last year. And then you have some injuries to Mike Meadows and different things like that throughout that last season. And so it puts you in those are five guys that you were planning on playing major minutes, right? And they were in and
Yeah.
out of the lineup. And so, but you learn from that. That's a learning experience. I'm particularly, I'm kind of still of a young coach, if you'd like to say, early in my, coaching career, at least as a head coach. And so you learn a lot of new things. And sometimes you have to take some really bad bruises along the way, but they heal. It took a whole summer and maybe a couple days. But you sleep and you wake up and you have the right people around you and you keep pushing forward. It's the same thing that I told Tyler. I said, hey, we're going to build a team. It's going to be a good team. We're going to have length. We're going to have size. We're going to have some depth. So you don't have to play 40 minutes a game where you can play your best basketball. And so that's one of the things that we did this year. And that's what we worked on this summer is just, conditioning, just, working on our bodies. Sometimes you get some freak injuries and you have to deal with them. But I think all in all, I think it was a good summer for us, and I think it was good just to have some reflection time because last year was new. It was new it was new for me, and I think we did a good job of really hitting the reset button and coming in ready to work.
Yeah, and you do have a good score of at least of some of those returners. You talked about Tyler Robertson already, but one of the guys that I feel like sticks out in that group is the return of Chris Austin because he was a guy
Yeah.
you missed all of last year and got hurt at
Mhm.
the end of obviously the year right before.
Yeah.
Talk about like his recovery and what he's been able to like work on during the summer to try to get back in the game shape as we get closer to the season.
Well, I thought last year we could have got him in maybe the second half of a WCC player, maybe even the beginning. But I just felt that for him, for his career past University of Portland, I thought it would be best, let him keep healing, let him keep getting stronger. The injury he had, it's a broken bone, but the way he broke it and it's a mental thing, right? And so like he had to sit out and didn't have a lot of strengthening, so different muscles would hurt on him, daily. And so my whole thing with him was, let's just get you all the way and let's get you right for October. You need to be ready for November 6th. And he looks amazing. He looks like he hasn't missed a beat. If you guys know Chris, he's one of those guys that didn't miss a beat in the weight room, didn't miss a beat in conditioning. He's one of our leaders, so he's one of our tough guys. He's one of our best defenders. He's one of our better guard rebounders. And so you missed them all last year, even though you think you're going to have them. You missed them all last year, and it was kind of tough. But having him practice and work out, I mean, he took this. I mean, he didn't go home during summer break. He just stayed here, worked out, worked on his school stuff, and just was excited about this season, and I think he's really itching to get back there. And I thought he did a good job this summer. It's going to be huge to have him back. That's a big piece for us because he did a lot of things for us. I mean, he averaged 15 points the year before,
Yeah.
and he did a lot of things for us. He guarded the other team's best players at times. He had key rebounds. I mean, he did things that we missed last year. And I think his leadership by example, he's not the loudest guy, but you're going to follow Chris Austin. He does a great job. He's good in the classroom. And so, he's not a BS type of guy. He's not, hoorah and all that kind of stuff. He's ready to go. And all the guys they follow that sometimes by example.
Yeah, anchored by those two just couple of vets, just seeing Chris Austin be able to like come back and seeing Tyler Robertson come back, obviously it's huge for the program, but someone who almost got a lot of opportunity last year who may not have had the injuries not happen was Juan Sebastian Gorosito.
Yeah.
And just kind of talk about like, just because we saw him get better and better last year as we go through conference play. And just talk a little bit about him as we go into this year.
All right. He likes to be called Wanze. He
Wanze.
puts Juan and Sebastian
Yeah.
together and just says Wanze. So you got to make sure you call him
Wanze.
Wanze. If you ever hear me calling Sebastian, that means he's ready to fight me.
Uh-oh.
No, I'm kidding. No, he was a guy that just got better every game, every practice. He's a guy that has no fear in anything. He's excited to play this. He can't wait for this season. I mean, again, another guy that only went back to Argentina for 10 days, see his family. He came right back. He wanted to be here for summer school to get ahead. But he's put on some muscles in the weight room. I mean, he looks great. He's quicker. He's now jumping. He's got more explosiveness. His change of speed, if you watched him last year, he just looked like the road runner out there. And so he's changed his speeds a little bit. He's gotten much better at that. But then the thing he does, that's one of the best things that, I can't shoot the ball. He's one of the best shooters in the country, not just our league in the country. I mean, the things he does when people come in here and watch him from, other scouts and, teams that seen him play, and you got, NBA guys come through here and check our guys out before they go to the Blazers. They say he's one of the best shooters they've seen. And so he's gotten a lot better. I'm hoping there's no sophomore slump with him. I don't think there will be, but he's one of those guys that has really, taken leaps and bounds steps over this summer. I'm really excited to see what he can do this season.
Yeah, and you have a few other guys that are coming back as well, but you also had to bring in a ton of guys from the portal. Who are some of the guys that you think are going to be able to make impacts early on in the season, and then maybe who are some names that we should really watch out for?
We got Vukasin Masic, who sat out last year, coming over from Maine. Again, another guy that I thought would, probably be one of our starters last year. But he had to sit out due to NCAA rules, second transfer, and all that kind of stuff. And so he came here. He got to practice with us all season long. He's really good, and so I'm excited about watching him play. We brought some guys in, from different schools. The kid from West Virginia State, Noah Jordan, he's going to really help us. I mean, he's about 6'7.5". I mean, he shot over 40% career three-point shooter. He's a rebounder. He played a lot of five for his team because he's just bigger, but he's a wing. Yuto coming over from Lamar. He's one of those guys that was one of the top 100 defensive rebounds and top, 50 offensive rebounding guys per minute in the country. That's a lot doing as a freshman. I really like the pickup of Ollie from, I'm not trying to kill their last names. Ollie from Cal Poly. He's done so many things this year with us so far that makes you, think like we got some nice pieces. And then Big V in the middle. It's his third year. Vasilia, it's his third year with us. And so,
Yeah.
When you have a third year with us, especially at that position, because that's a very important position for the way I like to do things. If you look at how we've used our guys in the past, they've become really good that third year. And so we're hoping he takes a big jump for us. He's shooting the ball better from the perimeter. He's a little bit more confident. So you got those guys, and then you bring over a kid that didn't play a lot his first 2 years in college. He redshirted his first year, and then had the opportunity to play last year at the University of Miami. Is Thomas Oosterbrook, and he's about 6'8", but he's play any position on the floor for us, and he shoots the ball. He could handle and pass it. I think you got some guys that really went under the radar in the portal. And you look at it and you're thinking, okay, well, we got this group of guys, and how's it going to look? And then you see them this summer, and they're all playing with the edge and the chip on their shoulder because they have a lot to prove, especially the guys that were here the year before. That's not a year. 14 and 19 is not a year that you're never excited about. It leaves a bad taste in your mouth. And so, you had some of the guys exit with the transfer portal, but we brought some guys in, I think, that really helped our defensive capabilities, our rebound capabilities, but also didn't slow us down in the shooting. I think that's one of the things we love to do is shoot. And I think we brought in some guys that could really shoot the ball. And so excited about that. And I think I didn't miss anybody, I don't believe, especially if you're talking about transfers and
Yeah.
guys that were here last year.
And I mean, again, like there was so much movement, and really across the conference, like a lot of teams in the league had to really rebuild. Gonzaga had the rebuild, USF had the rebuild, LMU, Santa Clara, you guys all, a lot of the teams in the league had the rebuild. As you've kind of like started to see like what some of the other teams in the league have been able to do, like how is that kind of like how are you feeling about like going into the league of just seeing like really just the names and the guys who have come in on league wide?
Well, shoot, the league's done a great job. I always look at it, and if I'm looking at it all constantly. It's just something I keep refreshing. A lot of teams aren't putting up their rosters yet. Very smart. They're keeping their rosters, and they have some open spots. It's just what some guys do. But you look across the league, and you see teams that have built. You see teams that have lost guys to the portal. You see teams that have got a whole, like Santa Clara brought in a whole new, they lost their whole starting five pretty much, and they brought in some guys that are pretty good guys that we looked at, and you look at that, and you look at how, he's done a great job. Herb has done an amazing job, and his staff have done an amazing job of always, retooling and getting the right guys for their system and how they play. You look down at LMU, and they've done a good job of getting some guards. They lost one of the best guards in the league last year. He had a great year, but he's brought in some, at least three really good guards, I think. And so you're looking at that, and you see, okay, they did a great job of rebuilding their backcourt. Getting some guys in there that they think that's going to be pretty good. They also got a big kid from Cal that has, massive size. He can really, he actually moves his feet well and does a lot of good things. And, you look at St. Mary's, they brought on some good freshmen that are pretty good, but they also got some guys that didn't play a lot last year, like the Jefferson kid. And, getting Dukas back for another year is really huge. And, being able to bring on another guard, that's a pretty good guard. So they got better this summer. You could also look at, San Francisco, what they've done. They've done a good job. They've went and got some kids that are really good. They're going to impact their roster right away. And you can just go up and down the list. Gonzaga does what Gonzaga does every year. They go and get some really good players. They just lost a kid, I believe, but I don't think they were too worried about losing him. But they got some guys out there that are really good. And they're always going to get the cream of the crop. And so when you look at what we've done, and I always look at what we've done compared to everybody else, I like what we've done. I've always had teams where they've been overlooked a little bit, and okay, well, we're going to do this, and Pacific's brought on some really good guys. San Diego, I think, is the only team that really didn't bring in a lot of transfers, but the freshmen they brought in and some of the guys they have brought in are really good, and so that bodes well for them. In the as they go, they could bring in some really stud freshmen because there's a lot out there. And so you look at that, and you're like, okay, well, they went the route where they're going to have some youth, and so every team has gotten better this summer. And so you look at our league. I thought last year our league was really good. I think this year it's going to be even better, and so I'm really excited about the opportunity to compete.
Yeah, it really seems like that, especially over the last just few years, that everyone has really stepped up their game, and it's really just been almost a gauntlet starting to go through this league. And obviously, even down BYU, I don't think the league has taken a huge step backward, even though obviously BYU is still a big loss for
It,
the league competitively.
it's a
Uh,
loss. It's a loss a
yeah.
little bit, but I think the league's doing a good job of figuring out what they want to do next, from what I've been hearing. So I'm excited about what may happen.
So, so we talked about a little bit of the challenges with the portal, and just obviously everyone across college basketball has had to deal with a lot of the same challenges and trying to do the best they can. But we've also seen, and I want to talk to the Cal alum in you, the former Cal player in you, about just some of the transfers of conferences, and the fact that obviously we've seen what happened to the Pac-12 and Cal going to the ACC. And I know personally, because I grew up here in the Bay Area, watching Cal and Stanford from the time I was little. It's like seeing the Pac-12 dissolve like it did.
Yeah.
It hurt. It hurt. It hurt.
Yeah, it did. It did. It really did. I mean, it's a West Coast conference, right? It's the flagship West Coast conference. It's one of the Power Five West Coast conferences. And so that kind of puts it takes away a little bit of that West Coast mystique. Oh, we don't stay up late to watch your games, all that yada 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 stuff, and you hear it now because of the WCC. And so now we may be the primary West Coast conference in the Mountain West, and so that's a good thing. You got to look at how it shook out and how it shakes out for us. We're going to be able to go up and down the West Coast now and grab kids that wanted to go to those schools, that want to be a part of a West Coast conference. It's great, that some guys want to play nearby, and it stinks because I played in the Pac-10, and then when it got to the Pac-12, all us Pac-10 guys said, it's weak. Those two teams, now it's not even a league. I don't think anymore. I think Oregon State and Washington State are trying to hold on strong and try to figure it all out. But it's tough because that's what you grow up watching.
Yeah.
I grew up watching all the Pac-12 games and Pac-10 games, and it's just a reminder. You gotta move on and be ready with the times, because it's not slowing down for anybody. And when all the moaning and the sadness, you just got to. Next year is going to be totally different. So, it kind of stinks because you're not going to get that, that Cal USC game. You're not going to get that special game. Like they had a
Mhm.
great game against Arizona State, and I remember all those games as a player. Those are games that you think about. People that from the West Coast that went down to those schools. Now you're not going to have those those little rivalries you had. I know that they're saying that Oregon's going to keep the matchup with Oregon State and Washington State's going to keep up with Washington. That's
Mhm.
only going to be for so long. I think so. I think that by the time they're going to have to figure out, how they're going to play those games. But I just don't see that happening for too long. And so you're just going to miss the Pac-12. But I think some things are going to be in the move where some things are going to happen where there'll be a good West Coast conference. Especially I love Pac-12 football. I don't know what else I could. That's the hardest thing for me. I'm a
Yeah.
West Coast basketball guy now, but West Coast Conference hoop guy. But now I'm a big Pac-12 football. I love watching those games on Saturday whenever those matchups come because they all know each other, and it just makes
Yeah.
it a little bit more. I'm kind of trying to see what it's going to be like. USC versus somebody that's not in the Pac-12.
Mhm.
So deep in the season.
Yeah. That that longtime rivalry of Rutgers and USC in the Big
I
Ten.
guess they're going to fight about the Scarlet Red. I have no idea what they're going to what game's that going to be on. What are they going to be playing for? That's the tough part. At least USC UCLA will still get a chance to go at it in California. That might be the marquee game of the year every year for Californians.
Maybe it's the few like non-conference games that they get. They'll just stick with each other and play each other that way. But to your point, like, yeah, maybe that's just a short-term thing, and who
Yeah,
knows how long it'll actually last.
it's gonna. I'm just looking forward to seeing how it all works out. I'm sitting back, and that's going to be something to watch in itself. It'll be entertaining to see how they all figure this out. Not just for the football, but for softball teams, for the swimmers, for the track. I can't wait to see how it all shakes out. It's very interesting. It's something that it's just something I want to see how it all works.
So one thing I'd like, so you mentioned it's like somehow all the other sports work. I mean, the rest of Portland athletics has some really good teams. Like both the soccer programs are rolling. The baseball team does really well. Who, when you get a chance, when you're able to actually get out there, like what's the most fun at a non-basketball event that you have at Portland?
Well, man, they're all pretty good, man. Like if you go to our women's team, they play a style of basketball that, it's rare you see, right? They're pressing, they're causing turnovers. They got all game long for 40 minutes, and that's something I've even picked up some of the stuff. You'll see some of the stuff we do this year. It's not gonna be exactly how that works, but it's fun to watch them play. Coach Meek's a really good coach, and then you go and watch our soccer team. We're third in the country. It's we the last game we went and watched, and our team goes to all these games. They scored in the first like 17 seconds of the game, and he does a good job with his team. He's a UCLA guy. He was there for a while, Coach Nick, and then our women's team. Obviously, they did a great job last year, and they're coming back in battle. They just tied Oregon State at Oregon State. But what's funny is they just want to keep. They want more. They're like, it wasn't a good game for us, and it's fun to have this camaraderie with our coaches around here. It's been great. Like being able to go out and watch them play, and then when it comes around baseball, I like watching baseball, and Coach Looney does an amazing job with his team, and all the athletes here are so for each other, and the coaches are too. So it's been a special community. I wasn't when I took the job wasn't expecting that, and so that part of this gig has been a blessing in disguise because we're there rooting for them, they root for us, and I go to all the events. I live right down the street. I live a 3-minute walk, so. My kids and my wife, we come to all the events. It's fun. Our players go and check them out. So our soccer teams, though, are right now that they're in play right now. They're unbelievable to watch. And Nick's done an amazing job with his team. I mean, they're number three. If they go on the road and beat Virginia Tech this weekend, and a couple teams lose, we have the number one soccer team in the country. And so that in itself is pretty cool. And so
Yeah.
just being around and seeing how how they're able to do things. We got to pick our stuff up according, from what I'm looking at. Everyone's balling. We got to start balling a little bit. Everyone else is balling. We got to get there. And so it's been fun watching these guys, and it also gives us motivation. looking at our school, we're tucked away here in Portland. Everybody always looks over, overlooks us, and oh, we got these teams, and Santa Clara is really good at soccer. And our team's up there now, and our athletic department has done a great job. Scott Latham has done an unbelievable job of directing us and putting us in the right positions to be successful. We're getting everything we need here.
Like, random connection. Scott was one of my old professors at St. Mary's
Really?
once upon a
Oh,
time.
he tells me all these old schools he used to be at. The worst one, Stanford. It's unbelievable. It's just disgusting, sickening that he used to things.
We did lose connection with Shantay, but again, I wanted to thank him one more time for being able to take some time, hop on and talk some Portland Pilots basketball. And it's like after talking with him, like I do think like there's more to this Portland team than maybe I originally thought. I am kind of a little bit more. There are a couple pieces on this team that I'm very interested in and really seeing go. Yuto Yamauchi Williams, 7-foot center. He's one of the transfers, obviously, that Shantay Coach Legans had talked about. Averaged 7.7 rebounds last year. He did play Pacific a year ago and had 10 points, 15 rebounds against the Tigers. So there is a like opponent there, and then also had a 19 rebound game against Southeastern Louisiana. So this is a guy, again, Portland is one of those teams that really over the last few years just has not had a consistent big guy, has not had someone who could just eat up boards. And this is the type of player that could really help them in that department, really help them on the size front, because this is a conference that just has some beef, some really tough guys down low. We know what Gonzaga always brings. We know what St. Mary's brings. USF, Santa Clara, and LMU all brought in some legit size into the season. So it's going to be critical to see what Portland does in the post, and at the very least, like being able to clean up the rebounds and everything else, because that is going to be a sticking point and a huge key going into the year. So, I mean, just thinking about where that program is, because we think about them just a few years back, and this was an awful, terrible program. I mean, that was a program that was lucky to win a handful of games a year. I mean, they won all of I think it was 4 conference games in a 3-year span. And then Shantay Legans comes in and essentially turns that program around in a year. Got him the 19 wins. They looked like they were moving in the right direction. Last year, like everything that could have gone wrong did go wrong. But the fact that everything could go wrong did go wrong, and they only were a game or two out of 5th place, being in the middle of the league, I think says something about just that coaching staff. And then also the guys that are coming back. I'm not going to doubt Tyler Robertson at all. That dude is a baller. He's a triple-double machine, or maybe not triple-double machine, but like that dude just fills up the stat sheet and does what it takes to help his team win. So as we start to look at and move toward getting closer to the season, we do have a few more of the schedules that have come out. I'll start with USF, who announced their full schedule, non-conference schedule and everything just last week. And it's a really solid non-conference schedule. I like the games against, they have Fresno State on December 22nd. All right, actually, I'll flip this and I'll start going in chronological order. Boise State, they're going to be at Boise on November 12th. That's a huge game for them. And a real good get for head coach Chris Gerlefson. Grand Canyon is another one of those games where they're going to head down to Arizona for that one. Grand Canyon is a really good program. That'll be a great test. They have Minnesota at the Chase Center, but Minnesota was awful. I think that looks better by name than it is by opponent. Then they're going to be on the road for both Arizona State, Vanderbilt. Those are both going to be really good games for USF. Then they get Utah State. So again, there's a lot of good good teams, good games on this schedule. It's not something that like really jumps out at you, but this is a solid enough schedule. I think that they can put themselves in a good position before they get to conference play, and then they're really going to have to actually pick it up. Kind of as I talked uh, last episode about how those USF, Santa Clara, and LMU are really going to have to do damage in conference and probably have to really separate itself from the others if they were to have a shot at getting back to the NCAA tournament, which, I mean, it's not out the realm of possibility for USF to get back there with the players they brought in, with the schedule they have. But I'll say the room for error, the opportunities, there are a few, and I think there are really good opportunities. But now you got to cash in. You got to make sure that you get those games. All right, and then the other schedule that I had mentioned that come out was the St. Mary's schedule. So I think this was one of the better schedules we've seen the Gales have. I saw a few people say that this might have been the best St. Mary's schedule they've ever seen. I think it's close. Like I think it's really good. So they'll be hosting both New Mexico and Weber State to start off the campaign. They have San Diego State and then either Xavier and Washington in the Continental Tires Classic down in Vegas. Davidson's going to be coming in. Utah's going to Moraga. They'll be playing Boise State, a neutral site. Neutral site. It's still in Idaho. Colorado State, UNLV, Missouri State, Kent State. So again, like there's a lot of really good opponents on here. It's funny. I always looked at this. I think I mentioned it last year. Got a heavy Mountain West schedule on here. New Mexico, San Diego State, Boise, Colorado State. You got 4 of them right there. UNLV is a 5th one. So you got like half the Mountain West on your schedule, which that's a tough road. The Mountain West plays a rough and tumble style, which is more or less the way St. Mary's plays. At least they had the last few years. I think they're going to play a little bit differently going into this year's style, just based on personnel. I think is going to be different. But this again, St. Mary's sets itself up well going into this season. A lot of really good games. There's not really that game where you're like, oh, that's kind of like falls flat. Maybe Cleveland State, Northern Kentucky might fall into that category, but Northern Kentucky and Middle Tennessee, who's also on the schedule, are usually pretty solid programs. I haven't dug too deep onto how those two programs look going into the year, but again, I think there's a lot of opportunity on that schedule, and there's not the quote bad game on there, not one that this team should not be able to take care of. So a lot of opportunities to build the resume. There's not like the one wow game, at least in my eyes. San Diego State maybe you qualify San Diego State as that now because they were in the title game a year ago. But San Diego State's a team that they've been playing for almost very consistently for the last like 6-7 years. So not surprising to see San Diego State on there. I think about last year they got Houston on that schedule late. So that was a really nice feather in the cap to say that you had one of the top teams in the country on that schedule. And again, there's plenty of meat on the bone for this with this schedule. And as I start to wrap this up, like we're starting to see all the programs start to actually like get together. The schedules are almost out. We're almost back to the season. It's going to be really exciting to kind of see, like, as we get closer, what other not roster moves, but how practices are going to go, how rotations are going to start to be set. Again, a lot of moving pieces for a lot of these teams. I'm excited to kind of see how it all starts to shape out, even maybe say like who picks up a red shirt, who doesn't. And we'll find out all of that as we get closer to the year. All right. Well, that'll wrap up this episode of the Unofficial WCC Hoops podcast. Be sure to subscribe on YouTube, favorite the podcast on your favorite streaming service. Follow me on I'm still saying Twitter for now. Twitter, Instagram, TikTok at Posts by Zach, and we'll continue the conversations there. One more time, I want to thank Shantay Legans, head coach at Portland, for popping in and taking some time to talk with me. And that'll do it. So again, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.